First and foremost, thank you to everyone for joining us today. I'm super excited. For the guys that can see or looked at the invite, we've got Dion, Chang, a futurist, a visionary around where the industry is going and what the industry is doing. I'm going to take a few minutes just to talk about the landscape of first distribution and where our Dell team is and some exciting announcements. And then we'll get straight into Dion, and Dion will obviously do a formal introduction and talk about the insights of where the industry is going and where the market is. And currently, with the uncertainty times with COVID and what it's done to the industry, it's been a huge impact to everyone across the world. It was unexpected. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been affected by their livelihoods. And, within our corporate business space where we deal with every single day, how do we evolve and how do we make sure that we have an idea of the insights and where we're evolving and what we need to do as an organization? And within first distribution, we've got Tony online as well. We've applied ourselves in different ways and manners in our organization in order to ensure that within your space in our partner ecosystem, we continuously survive and help you survive through these troubled times as well. So I just want to talk about one or two things, and then I'll do a full introduction, and then we'll get Dion on screen, and he can start with his presentation today. So some exciting announcements we're going to make within our first distribution Dell team. We've now will start distributing the CSG portfolio. So for the partners out there that are aware or is not aware, it's your full portfolio around Dell. So we've had some calls with Dell the last couple of weeks, and we've responded to an RFI and so forth. So very exciting. It's something we've really wanted to do for many years, and the reason for that is just we can offer a lot more. We can offer a lot more scale and becoming a lot more relevant within your own space and your own client customers as well. So look out for the announcements. We'll do something formally in the next, say, week or two going forward. We'll work with your account teams, and through that process stuff. Second thing, we've made some changes within our pre-sales division. Our pre-sales division will offer a lot more scale across all our regions. We've brought in a lot more senior guys within the business. So again, as we evolve and as we're trying to do better and offer you a better level of service, we're continuously trying to do better. And so again, with your account teams and the guys will bring us some announcements there. And then, as a brand, where are we? We're looking at finishing our second quarter. We're very blessed, and thanks for your support and all the partners out there today. You've really helped us over the last couple of years in providing sustainability. So quarter two is looking fairly good. I know a lot of you guys are coming to your financial year end, and I believe it's also doing fairly good in these troubled times. So that's very great. On the other hand, a lot of the partners have gone through some structural changes within that space. Our thoughts are with you. We hope sure that your business survives and goes through these times. And together, we'll always make it. I think as an industry, we've seen how adopting cloud and doing different things in the organization has allowed us to do that. And part of today is exactly where Dion's going to come in and he's going to talk about some insights, where the industry is going, what he's learned and what he's seeing, and what is the predictable future might look like. So without further ado, Dion, thank you so much for your time today. We're looking forward to your session. And guys, if there's any questions, you've got the messages going on the side. So please enjoy yourself. If you've got any questions, we are going to have ample time at the end. So for anyone who wants to ask any questions towards Dion towards the end of the presentation, you're more than welcome to do so. So Dion, thank you for your time and thank you for joining us.
Great, thanks very much, Andre. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to start sharing a screen just so that the presentation up and running. Just a second. There we go. So what I want to do, and just please feel free to put some questions into the chat so we can follow them up afterwards as we're chatting. What I'm going to do today is actually go through three processes, and one is, you'll see as from the title there, it's called the Great Staggering. It's kind of this uncertain time of where we are at the moment and just what is going to happen to that. The second part of the presentation is really about scaling innovation within organizations. So Andre and his team asked me to just start looking at what is important now during what we're calling the Great Staggering, and what companies need to do in order to get some creative ideas. Because as you'll see, as I chat through the whole presentation, one of the most important things is innovation. And then just right at the end, I'm just going to end off on a much more human note, and you'll see why I do that in the presentation, because this is what is affecting us in terms of mindset as well. So the lines are blurred between just simply suppliers, customers, employees, executive management, all of those kind of things, and we need a lot of different nuances with that. So let me get going. So firstly, what you're going to see here is insights that we've done. As soon as the pandemic hit, we started looking at what was going to happen within different industries. And at Flux Trends, just a bit about Flux Trends, we look at trends as business strategies. So it's a very different consumer insights company. We do a lot of research within very, very different sectors, but we also join the dots. So having said that, what we do with joining the dots, at the end of every year, we look at a presentation or a trend briefing for the state we're in for the following year. And in December, we ended off 2019, and we started looking at a new presentation, which we launched in February, called The Politics of Rage and Polarization. And the reason why I'm going back to the end of 2019, I think it's a really good way to contextualize where we are in the world, or where we were in the world, and what are the undercurrents that are happening, because these undercurrents are going to affect businesses. And you started to see geopolitical fights between China and Trump, and the tech industry specifically is caught in the crossfire, and that is going to have a real ripple effect within tech industries around the world. There's this trend concept called tech nationalism. So you're starting to see it within the politics, that each country is starting to say, we're going to ban TikTok, we're going to buy TikTok, we're going to do all of these kind of things. So where does that leave app developers, tech, software developers, all of those things? So this is how we left 2019. You'll see on the screen here, Hong Kong in 2019. And this is kind of why we call this the politics of rage and polarization. Because at the start, you'll see, at the start of this year, you're just starting to see that we are becoming more and more polarized. And for me, I think it's about the breaking down of a lot of old traditional systems, whether it's political, social, economic, and that's why you're starting to see that. So it's no coincidence that if you see this image on the screen now, and you then see the one that's happening in Minnesota. Sorry, I just want to just grab this again, if you just bear with me there. If you look at Minnesota, of what's happening there, it's almost exactly a carbon copy of the separation of police forces, all of those kind of things. So that's the political turmoil that we're having. But in between all of this, all of these undercurrents that were happening, we had the Great Pause. So the world went into lockdown in various stages between February and into March. We went into lockdown into March. I'm hoping, they're saying that the president is about to chat to us again, and that some things will be lifted and businesses can start going through there. But the reason why I've called this presentation The Great Staggering is because it is going to be the staggered effect. I was on, well, it's actually on tonight, I'm on Gareth Cliff's show, and I was asked, so when do you think the pandemic is going to be finished? And that's a very, very long-ended question, because even if you think that there's a vaccine that's going to come through, Russia said they've got a vaccine, nobody really is quite encouraged by that, because they're a bit skeptical about that. But most economists say, into 2021 is really when businesses are going to start recalibrating. So that's why I'm calling it the Great Staggering. We're in for a long haul, so it's not going to snap back very quickly, and the damage that the economy is being pushed into is going to take a long time to recover. But we are, as humans, a very resilient lot. So you'll see on screen here, this is kind of what happened very, very quickly. The lots of the deaths that are happening around here, and then the sad thing about not being able to go to it. I've been to a Zoom funeral already, but we're also not only mourning the people that have passed because of the pandemic, but we are also mourning just the loss of our freedoms, our loss of our jobs, the loss of normality within that. But like I said, humans are a very resilient lot, and as you can see from this priest, it's St. Ambrose Parish in America. This priest got a very, very different way of dispensing holy water with a water pistol, and it was a drive-through blessing in order to do that. So we find ways and means to get around different things. if you start looking at what happened during lockdown, there were certain industries that were able to pivot or to be able to come into something different to survive. A lot of the restaurants, there's going to be a lot of fallout as we go along, because even though restaurants are allowed to open, it's not full capacity, you can't serve alcohol yet, and people are not that keen to do that. So some restaurants pivoted and they did takeaways, and there's certain industries like the exercising industry. Here on the screen, on split screen, you see a yoga being live streamed. So this is an interesting one because it is about the mindset, and that's why today is about looking at the environment, but also looking at innovation and looking at how ideas happen. My fellow speaker, Graham Codrington, also posted something on Facebook, and he said there was two examples. One was a yoga teacher who was mourning the loss of her business, saying she doesn't know what to do. Then there was a Pilates instructor who just went online, went global, and has never been busier before and now has a global following. So it depends on how you look at things in order to do that. And it's very, very important because we are about to, or we're starting to experience the second wave of economic impact. I've written quite a few articles. They're on our website on fluxtrends.com. But the second wave of economic impact, what I mean by that is that the first couple of months was just trying to deal with lockdown, and everybody was trying to get a handle on remote working, how that works, and start to manage their teams remotely. We've adapted to that, and now we're seeing the ripple effect of disrupted supply chains, and these are unforeseen circumstances. And I think this is especially in the tech world, as speaking to First Distribution and also the partners. The ancillary industries that you are linked to, please keep a watch on them, because what happens in one industry, especially now, is going to have a knock-on effect, especially in terms of supply chains, components. Small little things are disrupted around the world. So there's a lot. The reason why I'm calling it the second wave of economic impact is there are things that are out of your control that might start to impact the business now, and that's going to sort of hold people back constantly. So another article I wrote was a switch from VUCA. So if you've been, at any business school or it's executive speak, VUCA stands for, and VUCA was normally referring to the Fourth Industrial Revolution, any sort of new technological things, digitalization, automation, and VUCA the acronym stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But there's an interesting article called How Businesses Can Reorganize Themselves for an Unpredictable World. And what they said was that acronym is now out the window, and we've got to replace that acronym now in terms of business with something called BARNI. So BARNI stands for brittleness, anxiety, non-linearity, and incomprehensibility. It's quite a mouthful, but it's a really good read. You'll find it on our website. The article states that businesses would look to a linear model and how the world worked. And the article says it's good up to a point, and that point at which it ceases to be good is one that we've reached very definitively over the past few months. So everything really has changed. I looked at a different report. It was between Capita Consulting and Wired magazine, and they took a group of business leaders from various sectors, from law, hospitality, the tech sector, through to finance, retail, and private equities. And they wanted to ask these business leaders what they thought about the prospects of business are and how they were planning to adapt to a COVID world. And 6 very, very interesting points emerged. And even within that 6, you can see 2 different clumpings of them. So I'll just go through them really quickly. So number 1, that the pandemic has catalyzed changes that were already underway. We've seen it with a lot of technologies, with video conferencing like we are now, remote working, all of those things. They were concepts that were standing in the sidelines, and they've just been accelerated. And what this article says is moving fast for all businesses to match that velocity is the new survive or thrive factor. So you've got to be able to match that velocity and move really, really quickly. The second one into that is interesting is that there is zero basing at work. So they're saying it's a rare opportunity to zero base all your assumptions and forecasts. So the strategies that you had formulated maybe in 2019 need literally to be parked on the side and reassessed and relooked at whatever. So zero base all your assumptions and start afresh. The very important one, number 3, and this comes out a lot within my presentation as well, is the nurturing of socialization. And what they mean about that is, for example, if you're in the hospitality sector, you now need to persuade not only your own staff, but your guests that are coming into the hotels that the services are safe. So the whole element of social contact, social distancing, socialization of the business is really, really important. So it's not just bottom line, hard, hard figures, data, all of those kind of things. There need to be that human factor into it. Number 4 is that all fixed costs are under review. And I think in the past 4 months, we've all done that. If you're a business owner, you just review all of your fixed costs and make sure that you are trying to skim and be lean and mean as much as possible. Again, number 5 is part of that socialization. As I said, humanizing a business is utmost important. Empathy is your new goal, and it's also your new currency, not only with your workforce, but also with your clients as well. And number 6 is really a summary of all of those things. And what I said in the earlier slide about Barney is that reorganization is afoot. As much as you might not want to do that, a change in ethos, a change in values, and a change in the business structure is what people need to do right now. So kind leadership, human-focused businesses, and adaptability are paramount. I just want to take you through to 1 or 2 examples of how this is manifesting itself at the moment. So this is a hotel, the White Hotel in Brooklyn, in New York. I've actually been there. What they've done is an interesting collaboration model, and you're going to hear that word collaboration, collaboration, collaboration to get us through the rest of 2020 and beyond the pandemic. Is how do we collaborate, and how do we collaborate with maybe some unusual business partners that we didn't consider before. So what the White Hotel has done, and I've just seen today, the Peninsula Hotel in Cape Town has done exactly the same thing. They've started letting their rooms out as offices. So for people and parents who are stressed from trying to be homeschooling as well as conducting their businesses at home, they just want a bit of respite. You can actually book into hotel rooms. So on the screen, you'll see what the White Hotel has done. They've taken the beds out and they've created little offices where you can actually book in for a day and just kind of get some work done and work from there. In Sweden, they've done something even more interesting. Is what they've done is they've used each of their rooms as private dining rooms. So you book a room at the hotel in the city called Stadt, and then what they do is the room service or the restaurant that is linked to the hotel continues to do business, and they basically just send the meal up to you. So you are social distancing when you have a room, and if lucky them, you can have a drink or too many. You can just book the hotel room and stay overnight, and then keep going through there. But I think what I want to do is also focus on what the touch points are for businesses going forward. So the part of that humanizing that of the business and making sure that socialization is core to your business product. This is the Hilton Hotel. They've actually collaborated with Lysol, the disinfectant maker, as well as the Mayo Clinic. They're an online healthcare provider. And basically, they've put together new protocols of how a hotel should be cleaned and what what messages and visual messages they need to do that. So I think that's what I think all businesses need to do. Even if you have a bricks and mortar business coming through the doors, what is the the hygiene? Make sure that it's visually you can see people cleaning. So what these hotels are doing is they're putting seals on the doors. Once the doors have been cleaned, they've taken all the paper and pens around there, but they've literally put visual markers about how safe and secure that is. So reassurance is going to be a new business currency, and that's what you need to keep in mind. Pivotal to all of this and to all of your businesses. So this one is a really, really crucial one, and for me, an entirely huge opportunity for what the tech world can do. We are seeing a huge surge in a contactless economy. So whether it is a payment system, we don't really want to now tap into it, a payment monitor. Even though you can tap, some ones still require you to do the PIN. I'm still not sure why that is, why they haven't upped that game. But everything from telemedicine to homeschooling, we are going to go more and more into contactless economy. And as I said, that's a huge opportunity for you guys to do that. The other thing that we advocated, I hosted a masterclass last week, and we asked business owners what their biggest challenges were. So we got a good snapshot of small businesses and what their challenges were. And one of the recommendations that we put through is to look at UX or CX, or customer design, or user design, user experience. So if you're a software developer, you understand it completely. But even in the physical realm, you need to have some kind of interaction design. So on the screen, you'll see what different retailers are doing in terms of social distancing, how to queue. Outside of it, there are a lot of apps that are queuing apps. So you go to a place, maybe it's a big macro or something like that, but you don't queue up, you wait in the car, and these apps are able to tell you when it's okay for you to come through, or they give you a number to do that. So again, part of that contactless economy, but also a well thought through user experience as well as a customer experience. And I think that is really, really what's needed in business right now. A little bit about communicating. So when you are communicating to the end user, there's certain things that you need to understand to keep brand loyalty. One thing we need to understand is, and we've seen it with different governments and even with our own government, just if you go back and forth with really confusing messages, it makes people much, much more nervous, and that's going to have an impact on your loyalty for the brand. Clear communication and transparency, and specifically if you communicate very, very clearly and succinctly, it provides people a sense of control. And we're feeling that everything is out of control at the moment. So if you are able to give your clients just that little bit of sense of control and feel that they're in control of something, or they understand something really, really well, that will really, really go far to do that. And just remember, everybody sitting at home, working from home, is also having, they're doom scrolling, as they call it. So you've got this multi-channel onslaught when you're in lockdown. So when you do communicate with people, make sure that that communication is really, really clear, and that reaches and it hits home to who you want to communicate to and what you want to say. And then just going back again to about the socialization, the humanization of businesses there. I know we're in a big, a high data kind of world, and we're relying on a lot of data and algorithms to kind of move business. But now's the time to also put an up the human and personal contact there. Should, and I hope it doesn't happen, but if any of your brands, there's a mistake, a social media oops, or something like that, we're also in an era of kind of people that forgive things because we're in exceptional circumstances. But as your Gen Z customer would want, don't just say sorry, explain what happened, and also explain how you're going to fix the problem. It's really, really clear that one needs to be empathetic about this, to communicate very, very clearly, and then to be able to switch and change businesses and pivot there. I want to just have a stop here before I go into the next section, and just to ask everybody, and just keep this in your mind. So some of the hospitality examples I've done about the contactless economy, about socialization of businesses. What do you think? Because I host a lot of classes at business schools, but when we talk about disruption before the pandemic, it was always about technology. It was always about the fourth industrial revolution and what those are hitting. At Flux, we put in non-tech disruptors. That might be your new Gen Z customer, it might be geopolitics. But after what I've just said in this first section, what are the key disruptors or possibly blind spots that you might not have seen that would be affecting your business, or that you can add to the management of your business, and how will that affect what you do, and how will that affect the workforce there? Keep that one in mind, and I can take some questions at the end. So I want to go into looking at how to bring innovative ideas to the table. So if I look at some of the questions we got for our master classes, it was all about pivoting or changing a business model or moving into something or changing the marketing strategy or reaching out to customers. People had contracts cancelled. How do we get new people? How do we change the language for this? Even non-profits started putting into questions to us and saying, how do we incrementally change and get people to respond to our strategic thinking if they wanted to sort of change from just being a non-profit to kind of a more of a retail business. So here are things that are brought in from a masterclass that I do. It's called Square Pegs and Round Holes. And I ask the question of why innovation doesn't scale easily, specifically in large corporates. And these are the findings of what businesses can do internally to look at your internal structures and to look at your company culture and say, we need to tweak this a little bit in order for those good ideas to start bubbling up. So the first one is to take this time, as counterintuitive as it seems, because everybody is in survival mode and rescue mode. We want to rescue the businesses. We want to open the businesses up as soon as possible. But also it is a good time to also not just work in the business, but on the business. And we very rarely have time to work on the business. So take this time to reflect and to think, what can that business model, or how can that business model be tweaked? And what can we do to work a lot more on the business, and even divide your day? Maybe first half of the day we're working in the business, second half of the day let's work on the business and relook distribution channels, relook marketing communication, relook how you reorganize the business model. And then this is for any leadership or executives that are listening in, because I do a lot of coaching with executive teams and excos, and I say to them, during this time, disruptive times, but specifically in a pandemic, the old adage of I want to be the king of the castle, you work your way up the corporate ladder, and then you get the nice corner office with a view, no longer it really works in terms of innovation. If you really want creative juices to start flowing, you need to be the center of the circle. If you're management, you want your teams orbiting around you in a much flatter structure, because the more hierarchical it is, the more it's going to stunt good ideas and ideas that can change a business model really, really fast. Linked to that is also the destruction of silos. One of the biggest inhibitors are how corporate businesses are structured and how the silos are very detrimental to the innovation process. And as you can see, as digitalization of businesses occurs, you can start seeing that there's a lot of the roles in which you do are starting to blur. So that's why I'm saying if you have very, very rigid silos, you should at least try and blur the boundaries or try and destroy them. The other one in terms of getting good ideas is diversity and inclusivity. So when I say diversity or inclusivity, then you will automatically think about what we think about diversity in South Africa is gender politics or racial politics. So that is really important, but I want to take it one step further, is also that in terms of innovation, you need a lot more of a multidisciplinary way of thinking. So you need people coming at you from a very, very different angle. So people in the financial sector, especially in banking, understand that the biggest threat to banking is not the banking sector, but it's probably going to be a social media platform that's offering financial services, and they've started doing that. And what is going to take them out is someone from outside of the financial services industry. So the same applies to everybody else. What do you need to enable you to have eyes of a child? I went to a very interesting diversity and inclusivity conference in New York when one could travel. That was last year, and one of the case studies really stuck into my head, and I want to just share this with you. They gave a case study of a hospital that was trying to improve business efficiency, and I think every single company wants to improve business efficiency. So what they did was they did all the normal things. They spoke to the doctors, they spoke to the nurses, they spoke to the administrative staff. And once they'd done all the surveys, they went and collated their information, and they discovered that the most important or the most valuable information that they got was not from the doctors or the nurses, but actually, wait for it, from the security guard who stood in emergencies. He watched people come in and out, and people having hissy fits and trauma and the sort of the registration process. And he gave them the best advice. So I want you to all think, where do you think those unexpected ideas are going to come from? And more importantly, do you allow those diverse thoughts and ideas to bubble up into the decision-making process? And here I want to ask you is, do you have a speak-up culture within your organization? Because I think that's really, really important. And I'm a champion of a younger workforce, especially our emerging new workforce of Gen Z. So we've done 5 years of research and tracking of Gen Z mindset. And a younger workforce is going to want to contribute into your business. And if you shut them out, they're just going to leave as well. And every company is trying to get young and new talent into their business. So do you have a speak-up culture in the business? And secondly is just, here are some metrics of what you're going to do. So if you're going to embark on a business pivot or a change of your business model, it needs to be a very structured way of doing things. So what's on screen is not what I'm saying that has to happen, but it just gives you an idea of the different types of mindsets. A creative mindset, a numbers mindset, somebody that sees the big picture mindset, somebody who does nuts and bolts and everything. But there's 5 important things that you need to do to understand what innovation and what good teams need to understand together in order for that innovation process to happen. So firstly is that psychological safety. So everybody feels that they can speak up. So that's got that speak up culture. I can say what I feel needs to be done, and I don't feel I'm going to be shut down or shut off with that. Number 2, dependability. So everybody completes their work on time and it's good quality work. Number 3, about the communication as well, but internal communication just as important. Structure and clarity. If you're going to embark on a small pivot or a big pivot in the business, make sure that everybody is on the same page and understands what the end goal is. And then the last 2, which is what especially a younger workforce, but I think all of us, especially after the pandemic, are going to look for, is meaning and impact. I want to be able to work for a company that has meaning, that has impact, and that does more than just have shareholder primacy or just looks at the bottom line. I want a company that is holistic within that, and together we can do great things. On that note, I want to also put a different way of looking at things, is viewing your customers differently. And I don't just mean viewing your end customer differently. I'm bringing this internally again within a company, is your sales team and your marketing team are customers of each other. So within a company, and even within this network of first distribution, you have partner companies as well. So that's not even the end user. So what I'm saying is, within the company, within the different divisions, view yourselves as your own customers. And once you start doing that internal mind shift of looking at your internal departments as different customers, it will start manifesting itself, and it will start showing itself outside of the business, and you'll start seeing a big improvement. And then just last one on the section is looking at learning zones versus performance zones. So what I mean about that is, if you look at high performance athletes, they are in training for most of their active and their athletic life. So they are in a learning zone. 95% of the time they train, and that last 5% or even less, they go to the Olympics, or they go to a athletics meet, or it's a big match, and then they perform. And all of that learning zone comes into that performance zone, and they do amazing things. In business, we stay in the performance zone almost 100% of the time. And especially now, in a lockdown situation when the economy is hemorrhaging, we are looking purely at just looking at how we do operations there. So I want to ask you to try and switch things, not to be 100% in the performance zone, and go more and more into the learning zone. Even if it's 40%, even you going a little bit more, then we should be able to start seeing some changes within innovation. My final section is just about mental well-being. And I think this is important for us to go beyond businesses to understand how mental well-being is affecting our businesses, and if we don't address this, then the great staggering is going to be a very, very painful period indeed. So what this pandemic has taught us so far is that it is also called the pandemic of hate. There is a lot of xenophobia happening. There's xenophobia. I'm an Asian person. I've experienced this. There's also, people are starting not to say that they've had a family member die from COVID. There's sort of some kind of resistance within that, but it's starting to just spark these uprisings and bits of hate. Even the Black Lives Matter is sort of joined into this mindset. And the second one is highlighted inequalities as well. We've seen the poorest of the poor really suffering from this, and in South Africa that is just devastating to a lot of people. We've seen petty crimes on the increase because people are really, really desperate to do that. So it has really highlighted the faults within society and where we are with that. So I want to also just put on that, and I've also written quite a few articles about this, is that the concept of anticipatory grief, and we're all experiencing this. And I think it's really important for us to understand that, because once you understand this, you can start framing the way in which you interact with family, the way you interact with friends, and then the way within a business, how you interact with your co-workers. So what I mean by anticipatory grief, it's normally a term given related to death, obviously, and it is about, say you are given some news about a terminal disease. That is the anticipatory grief. So you are anticipating something that hasn't happened but is about to happen, or you know it's going to happen. With the pandemic and the coronavirus is this anticipatory grief, and we are not sure of whether or not we're going to catch it. If we are going to catch it, and I've got a lot of family and friends that have got the virus, and it's also that waiting game to see, is it a mild symptom? Is it really serious? Well, I'm going to have to go to hospital, all of those kind of things there. So the thing to understand about the anticipatory grief is also that we are mourning the open-endedness of it all. We don't know when this is going to end, so there's no beginning or end. Well, there's a beginning, but there's no end. So we don't know how long this is going to go, and we are hence in the state of limbo. So life in limbo, we don't know what really to do. But if you are back at work, or even if you are doing virtual meetings with your work colleagues, you must be aware of three different groups of people. So this is, just quickly, the worried well, the affected, and the bereaved. So the worried well are experiencing anticipatory grief, as I've explained to you. We're healthy, we're in lockdown, we're a bit frustrated, or a lot frustrated, but that's kind of, we're managing that. The affected are the people that have actually contracted COVID. They're going through things, and some of them are experiencing those horrific fatigues and the after effects of that, even if it's a mild way of doing things. And then the third one is the bereaved. So they are people that are actually mourning the loss of people. And even somebody I mentored through one of her MBAs, I just discovered last week, she died leaving a 3-week-old baby because she contracted COVID postpartum, and she probably held her baby for once or twice, and then she passed. That's really, really sad. So the reason why I'm putting the three groups there is if you're a worried well person and you're just complaining that you can't have a drink or have a smoke, and somebody has lost their lives, and a young mother that's never going to actually see her baby, that can cause a lot of internal conflict. So be aware of what other people are feeling and how other people experience anticipatory grief, because that will go a long way of smoothing things through. And then for any company owners or executives, here's some tips on just how to keep people happy. New office perks. They're saying beforehand it was just really about benefits that people would have to their employees, and occasionally it would be extended to their family members. Now it's time to actually extend it, make the circle bigger, and extend some of those benefits and perks, if you are able to afford it, to a wider circle of the family member. So some of the things that are doing, and herein lies another opportunity. Some of the companies, if they've been given, they've had a fantastic staff canteen, have sent all of their remote workers a food voucher, so maybe an Uber Eats voucher, something like that. The other one, and this is the opportunity, is they've given each of their workforces a stipend to set up something, a work from home office, because like I said, this is not going to end very, very quickly. And the opportunity for First Distribution is to make partnerships with that, to create work from home packages that you're able to ship out, to allow customers to buy a work from home package, which they can gift to their workforce who are trying to set up work from home offices. There are plenty of opportunities that lie in there. And linked to that one is another article that I wrote about the future of office space. This was asked a lot to us from our masterclass, and people said, what is the future of work looking like? Are we going to continue remote working? The answer is yes. A lot of business owners have been able to crack remote working or work from home. It's managed well, and especially small businesses. I know of a lot of businesses who have all cancelled their leases with that. So in my article, I say I feel for the asset management companies because commercial properties are going to take a big knock. And even your very, very large corporates are starting to see the benefit of fragmenting their corporate headquarters and hiring out some flexible work options in different cities, and maybe even within a city you've got 3 different work from home options that have different personalities, and allowing your workforce to do that. So I've been saying for many, many years that 40-hour work week, the 9 to 5, bums on seats, is a quaint relic of the 20th century. And this is one of the things that the pandemic has propelled to us, that velocity that I spoke of right up front. And then just an end note here, because a lot of people ask me, so when do you think that this will end? I was watching a very interesting interview on ENCA with the CEO of Tsogo-san, and the anchor was saying, they were talking about when the hospitality business would reopen, and the anchor said, when the pandemic is over, and the CEO actually said, no, stop, I need to stop you right there, because we've got to stop saying when the pandemic is over, but we've rather got to say when we start learning to manage life with this virus. If you look, despite the Russian claim that they've got a virus, if you look at viruses that around the world, it has taken over 3 years to really, really get that virus not only tested, but manufactured. And even if we get a COVID-19 virus, a vaccine for the virus, it's going to have to be manufactured globally. It's going to have to be distributed to billions of people. We're in this for a long run. If you even look at the economists and what they're saying about multinational companies around the world, the most positive and encouraging timeline they say is you're going to start only turning a profit when we hit 2021. So I don't want to end on a depressing note, but that is kind of the outlook. So it's how do you manage your business? How do you pivot your business model? How do you come up with new ideas in order to do that? And here's the one example that I want to end on. This is an example of 2 very unusual collaborations and a very big trend. So this is a removal company. They're called Bumble. They're in America, and they teamed up with a company called Babe, who creates canned wine. So you're going to be thinking, what on earth has canned wine and a removals company got to do with each other, and why are they collaborating? Well, one of the big trends around the world is a spike in divorce rates everywhere around the globe, breakups with everything because of lockdown. So people who loved their personal space and then after 4 months, it got a bit too much, and I think everyone's had some spousal or partnership friction at home, being with the kids and everything. So breakups are a really, really big thing. So this company has said, we will help you move. As you can see on the screen, your ex has been cancelled. The removal company will help you move your stuff out or move your ex's stuff out. The canned wine will give you a $100 gift card. They said for some liquid solace in a dark time. The removal company will give you a $600 voucher. And this is the service that they're offering. So here's the socialization, the humanization of it. They said, besides the monetary prize, Bumble also promises to hand tailor the perfect profile for your newly single mover, and also help remove all traces of your ex from your phone. So there's a little service going above and beyond what you do, but also humanizing that. And the only thing that I want to leave you with is it is time to rethink. In last week's Financial Times Weekender, in the editorial, they had something that just struck out at me, and I just wanted to say this as a parting shot to you. They said, many companies will have little choice but to begin some revamping of their business models. The pandemic has made sure that either their customers are no longer where they were or no need for what they are selling. In your case, people are needing what you are selling, but they may not be where they really are. So what is that business pivot that you guys can do to turn what seems to be a disaster into a brilliant business opportunity? And with that, I thank you very much for your time. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. If there are questions, I can take some there. I will stop sharing my screen, and just so that I can take some questions. Great. Are there any questions? I see from the chat that there's been some sound problems. So I really hope you've been able to hear the entire thing. It is recorded. Crowdcast does record, and I'm sure we'll be sharing that with you. If there are no questions, then I'm going to hand back to Andre and to Tony then.
Thank you, Dion. Lovely insight. I think, a lot of people have experienced what you've spoken about. A lot of organizations have had to apply themselves differently over the last couple of months. And it's tough times. I mean, I like that company, how they think out the box. There's humor in that, but it's a reality of where we're sitting today. And if you look at us as a team or as a division, a brand, we've had to apply ourselves differently as well. Continuously try to think differently. We've developed or applied ourselves in different manners in order to scale our partners and allowing them to scale to their customers in a different manner. We've brought things like DS and IoT, where we focus on video surveillance and security. It's a specialized team, and it's something we've brought into the business because it's a lot of things that people don't think. Security is front and center. Look at thermal scanning now, where a lot of the organizations haven't been enforced, that have to do all the screening tests and so forth. So we've got those capabilities built and designed within our organization. Around the new technologies that Dell has launched around server and storage, where we're the only distributor that offers the power storage out there in the industry to offer test some of the power scale. It's important that people like yourself that have a different perspective. Most of the people on the call, I would imagine, are very insightful around the corporate space and the partners and the customers that they deal with daily or monthly or quarterly. And it's enlightening to see that you've got a different opinion about it. And hopefully, the people on the call took some detail away from that, or took a lot of insight away from that.
Andre, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Before you and Tony, I know you're going to have a conversation, but there's just two questions that have popped up into the question thing. So if I can just answer those.
Sure.
The first one is a great reset possible? So economic reset, government politics reset, humanities, access to healthcare reset, business model reset, etc., as opposed to the staggering changes. So instead of trying to change the wheels of the car while it's moving rather globally, we stop and get into another car, into another direction. Thanks for that question. And it's funny you use the car analogy, because I always say to people before the pandemic is when we were talking about sort of technological disruption, is that if we are literally trying to get into or about to get into a driverless car, and there are models around the world that do that, why are we still in business using a stick shift manual to try and operate that new car? It's a different system, it's a different way of doing things. And to your point there is, I think it's not easy to change the wheels of the car while it's moving, but we can't stop either. So I think what you're starting to see at the beginning of my presentation, because I called that trend briefing the politics of rage and polarization, I think you're seeing the disruption, the non-tech disruption around the world, but even the tech disruption, is a lot of old systems are starting to die down. So we are only in the second decade of the 21st century, but those 20th century models, so we see it in education, we see it politically, the populism, all of those kind of things, we're reaching a critical tipping point, and that is what makes the globe a very, very shaky place. And that's why you just, you look at the world, you're thinking, what the hell is going on, that everything is going through there. So we are going to go through it, and unfortunately, it is going to be staggered because we can't just snap and just change overnight, although I would wish to. But one thing that I am taking hope with is that the pandemic has accelerated those changes. So while we are going to be forced to change that wheel of the car while it is moving. The second question that's there is home office. Those residential properties with dedicated office spaces will see the value go up. Yes, it will. Shailendra, thank you for your question. Again, you're starting to see the impact of this in terms of urban design. So a lot of city planners are re-looking at city planning because of that. But in terms of urban design and home design, the home office is a huge one. So people are starting to look at properties there. But there's also been another ripple effect, which is a strange and interesting one. So because people have lost their jobs, because properties have just gone really through the roof. I just read a really depressing thing. I wouldn't like to be in Manhattan in retail at the moment because big companies are actually just ditching their spaces in Manhattan because they just said it's not sustainable. But what you're starting to see is an exodus towards, they're calling them second-tier cities. So cities that have slightly more affordable ways of doing things. We've understood that in lockdown that we can work from home. So do we need to really buy that expensive property in that big city, or do we want a quieter life that is a little bit more laid back and we can still work? So there's a big shake-up, not only commercial properties, but residential properties as well.
Dion, the current salesperson in the current state, traditionally or before COVID, is face-to-face. It's a people's game. We built relationships and we evolved through that, and through that we secure our own sense of business. Current COVID, that people interaction is gone. As a question, what's the future of the new modern type sales individual? Sell in different aspects of the business. What do the guys have to look out for? You can't set up that meeting face to face. Well, you can digitally, but that personal intervention, body language, etc. As a question, how do people, from a sales perspective, what do the guys need to apply themselves differently in the future?
So I think that everyone's grappling with that. And I think, Andre, nice question, because I think the human interaction is not going to go away. I think one of the biggest sort of mind bends that the pandemic has given us is the fact that we can't have human contact. So it goes completely against any social DNA that we've got in our heads, is that we can't interact with each other socially, and that's what human nature wants to do. So for me, it's like everything. It's going to be a hybrid model. That when we eventually are able to meet people, it'll be able to meet people, and that's where those things about socializing the business is making sure that when you do meet up with somebody, it is in a safe space, that they don't feel that it's not safe to be in there. And I think one of the most important things, which is going to be completely counterintuitive, and you're going to think, am I barking mad? But is not to try and sell too hard. No, it's not what you need to do. It is about the business solution. So the sale will follow through afterwards, but once you found that solution, and I think empathy and reaching out, is coming out. In that masterclass we did, empathy just came through over and over and over and over again. That's why I added the section about anticipatory grief and understanding that, and saying, if you're going to be selling with people, it's rather checking with clients and saying, I'm not selling you anything today, but I just want to check in, are you okay? Is there anything you need? Is there anything you do? And it's just to go a little bit beyond what those roles and responsibilities are as a sales person, and maybe just blur the boundaries a little bit. And that kind of empathy and just caring about somebody will pay it back double in brand loyalty once you get that. So it's park off the sales for now, and it will come back if you have solutions.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So just a question around company culture, and how do you handle company culture, especially when you're bringing in new employees in this time? It's one thing that we're struggling with right now. We just brought 6 new staff in last week, and you don't get to build that relationship with people because you don't have that interaction. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that's a really tough one. Onboarding people when it's virtual. What we're finding about virtual, and also to remember that back to your question, Andre, and then to your question, Tony, is also we need to remember that we all starting to get screen fatigue, because it's the only way of conducting businesses, of doing things. So your lines of socializing, of watching entertainment, or everything is on that screen. So people need to kind of get out into that physical world. So Tony, I don't have a question, a proper answer for you, but it's as soon as you are able to, is to make sure that you create some kind of physical interaction as soon as possible, even if it's a social distance thing, on a terrace at a restaurant, to get people around there as a meet and greet. But I think not to mollycoddle new people that are onboarding, but it's also to make sure that check-in is done a little bit more regularly than the normal team. So don't expect that the new people that are being onboarded just to seamlessly fit in with the people that have been with the company for a long time. It would probably be more worthwhile to have separate conversations with them, with their management, with team leaders, have a little separate side thing there, just to ease people on a little bit more slowly and a little bit more gradually with that. But it's going to take extra effort, but I think that's what has to happen now.
Questions? I don't see anything on the questions and answers tab. Tony, anything else you want to ask Dion?
No, I think it's very, very insightful. And, from my point of view, interesting to see some of the things that you've covered, because it's what we're doing as a business. We're implementing a lot of what you're talking about. I think the most important thing right now, and what came through very strongly, is about being resilient and being adaptable, because that's what's required at the moment. We just have no idea how long this is going to go on for. And I think it's still going to get tougher before it gets easier.
I completely agree. That's why I introduced the concept of a second wave of economic impact. Is the kind of the broken threads of supply chains and everything. It's just, and I'll give you one example, and I think this is also mindful, especially if you're working with different suppliers that are around the world. I have a friend who's a brilliant jewelry designer. She lives in London, but she's here in South Africa for lockdown. Her client, so she's been conducting a global business. Her client, or her main people that she designs for, are based in Hong Kong. It's a Chinese company. One of their biggest clients is in Canada. And therein lies a unexpected disruption that nobody thought of. So for the client in Hong Kong and in China, they went out of lockdown 2 months ago. So they, to all intents and purposes, think that business is operating almost normally again. Canada, on the other hand, is in deep lockdown. Their retail is completely screwed, and also it's a fashion business. So you miss one seasonal cycle, and that entire cycle of fast fashion is gone. So she's caught in between different lockdown protocols, never mind just supply chain things. So it is going to be a very, very long way of doing things.
I see there's a comment from Callaway van Zeeburg. Dion, I don't know if you can see that, if that's a question or a statement. Yeah.
Expressing apprehension towards, yes, so it's walking salesman. It is. It's a very, very delicate balance. So apart from the anticipatory grief, the other thing that was unexpected, one of the trends we picked up, is the term agoraphobia. So we've all become agoraphobic, meaning that we all starting to see that our outside environments are not safe. So there might be the ones that are brave of you that just want to go out and just have a party. The other half of people are people that just do not want to do that. So it's a very, very important one, and that's the problem. Therein lies the question of the second wave of economic impact. If a restaurant is set to be open for training, that doesn't mean that they are going to just survive, because they need to get that socialization right, so that people understand that it's safe to go back into that restaurant. So it's a very, very important point, and very important point going forward. And like you said, a very delicate balance of being empathetic, trying to sell something, but also Do we do it in person? Do we do it virtually? Yeah, it's a bit of a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but that's the way we're going to have to do that. I'm just reading another.
Yeah, see, there's another one from Shalendra Hari.
Oh no, those are the ones that were in the questions. So
I see. So yeah.
Yes.
Last question from my side. I think it's an obvious one. South Africa now, I think we're going to a strong recession. I think the way of setting is now, roughly like Tony said. 2021 is the inside of when people are going to really start making money. But realistically, what do you think is the turning point where people are going to become a form of normal? And normal's not ever going to be the same for a very long time. How long do people really have to instinctively survive the next, call it 3 to 6 months? Is that even realistic, or do you think it's going to go on longer than what we all anticipate?
I don't want to leave us on a bad note, but I do think it's going to take longer than that. Look, I think what's the mood of businesses started shifting it when we went into July, and I think everybody was thinking, okay, we're going to go into, we went into level 3 lockdown, then we kind of went back again, and then it was level 3.5 or whatever. It started confusing a lot of people. But I think once we crossed into July and now we're into August, we're going to, we're sort of in the middle of Q3 already. I think businesses have resigned themselves to the fact that we've got to forge ahead. And one of the points that were in there that I didn't bring up, one of the 6 points of what businesses need to do was what Tony was saying earlier. Was one of the points that they were saying is for the first time in a decade, they were saying is that resilience trumps efficiency. So it's kind of whatever those long-term strategies were, you almost have to park them and say, what do we do really quickly? Per quarter, per month, you've got to, as long as you can just survive. So, my heart really goes out to the restaurant owners, and I ask everybody there, the minute you can, support a local brand, support a local business, support a local restaurant, because people are really, really hemorrhaging there. And you just need to do, so that those restaurants just need to do whatever they can to survive. So obviously a takeaway service or frozen food services is not going to bring them the income that they had, but if they can just keep their heads above water, this is kind of what we need to do for at least the next 6 months and probably eight months and into the first quarter of next year. And we should hopefully by Q2 next year be kind of back to some kind of regulations.
Kapsi, there's another question from Lance.
Yeah, how will the Papaya Act impact marketing digitally? Sure, that's a really, really important one, because that is going to be restrictive, and I think, but linked to that, it's not just the regulations about how you approach people and what you use with databases. What I'm also starting to see, and this is what in terms of sales and marketing, you've got to be very, very mindful of, is with the kind of the digital tsunami of information that's coming through with you, combined with your doom scrolling and all of that kind of thing and social media, is that people have started to unsubscribe from newsletters, clean up their subscription boxes. I've heard of a lot of people who have just done, they said they just cannot cope with any more messages, being bombarded with stuff, so they're just unsubscribe. So that cancel culture is very real within marketing and within digital marketing. So when you are looking at digital marketing specifically, change the language from sales to solutions or to empathy, and review the frequency of it. And there again, try one kind of pace, one kind of language for a month, try a different one for the next month. We are really, really in that testing zone. You've got to kind of keep testing things. And then only when we hit 2021, then you can say, okay, let's go back to maybe much more of a medium term and a much more longer term kind of strategy. But for the rest of 2020, it is really short term strategies and just to test things as quickly as possible, and then bail out of it if it doesn't work, and then bail back into something that does work. But it might seem frustrating, but it's in a very frustrating time that we're in. And that's what we kind of have to do with business and communication.
Thank you. Tony, and then just for you to close off, I mean, as first distribution, holistically, it's been challenging at times. I think, we're surviving or we've adapted. Just closing off some insights and adding to what Dion said, as an organization, where we're heading and the future outlook.
Yeah, I think so. Just firstly, just to thank all of our business partners for the support. It's been a tough time across our industry. I think we're in a very fortunate position that at First Distribution, we've had a good first 5 months of the year. In fact, our financial year starts 1 March, and we had our best ever first quarter. So that was a real surprise. I still think the hard times are to come. A lot of our traditional business was project based, and I think just the lack of face-to-face activity and the lack of spend from consumers, which is putting pressure on business, I think is going to have some longer term impact, and I think we'll be more challenged in that part of the business going forward. But our cloud business is really resilient, and we've seen such massive growth in that space. So it's been, that's been great, and it's as a result of the support that we get from our business partners. So I'd be remiss not to thank you really for the support. It's so appreciated. It's just such a challenging time, and there's no playbook on how do you run a business when you go into a global pandemic. This hasn't happened for 100 years. We had a consulting firm that contacted us about 2 months ago and said they'd like to advise us on how to run your business. And you go, well, where does the experience come from? You've never done this before, so how are you going to teach us to run a business in a pandemic when you've never had this? You've never done it before. So challenging times ahead. But the most important thing for us is that we look after our staff. I think if all companies can continue to pay their staff full salaries if they can, not to take any of the benefits away, because I think the quicker companies do that, I think the bigger impact it's going to have on the economy. So if we can play our role as business leaders and make sure that we keeping staff employed, paying them well, I think that's critically important, and that's we've got to make sure we do that. We've been challenged, I guess. This accelerated the process in terms of work from home, because it's something as a business we've been looking at. And, should we do it? Should we not? We've been very much that traditional relic business stuck in the 20th century that's bums on seats. And so we were very surprised at how quickly we were able to adapt and have 400 people work from home, literally overnight. So it just proved that, and we can still operate very efficiently within the business. And conversations I've been having with business partners are, telling us that we're as efficient as what we were previously, which is interesting. Having said that, working like this, in my mind, is not enjoyable. We miss that social interaction. So we've taken a decision that we want to get people back to the office. We have no intention of downsizing offices. In fact, we've just signed a lease for a new corporate headquarters in Cape Town, as big, if not bigger, than our current offices. And we're just keen to get people back into the office as soon as we can and kind of return to normality. And I think things will pass. We are adaptive and we change quickly, and this has become our new working normal. And I think as soon as we get through this, people will soon forget the current state that we're in. And I think that we will return to a degree of normality, our previous normality, sooner rather than later. And I think, again, as business leaders, we've got that responsibility to try and drive that. And so that's what we're looking forward to, and trying to get people back to a sense of old normal.
Thank you, Tony. Dion, I just see there's one last question that's popped up for you potentially around keeping sane, or just the balance around sanity during this time.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm glad I'm going to end off on that one. Thanks for asking that, Mashi. Is there a type of mind exercise we can do daily, like watching motivational speakers? I wouldn't recommend watching more. If you have the appetite, I think everyone's got screen fatigue. But if you can just go off to our website and look at that article I wrote about anticipatory grief, there is a link to the original article. And what that one is very insightful, because they said the kind of the anxiety that we're all experiencing is about stuff that we can't control. So your mind exercise that I can leave you with is to focus on stuff that you can control. So if you are out, if you are feeling agoraphobic, you go out and somebody's not wearing their mask and they're not social distancing, you can't control that person, but you can control how you step away from them and how you can keep your mask on and everything. So it's to do those kind of daily reminders of what you can control and what is there, which is why I said the communication, if you're in marketing, needs to be very clear and succinct, because if people understand things, it is a form of control. We are feeling that we've lost that control. So if you can control things, then you can do. And then the one thing about that is the physical thing, is we are sitting down at home. We kind of normally do it at the office as well, but we are sitting for almost 8 hours in front of a screen. You need to get up. You need to walk. I know people that work on news desk at live TV. They get up every hour to walk because you're going to have your hips, really, your joints and stuff are going to suffer from this. So it's not only a mental thing, but a physical thing of getting up, walking out, get some vitamin D. It's a great thing for, especially during the virus, but then also just focus on stuff that you are able to focus on and that you can control. And it's kind of old school Buddhism mindfulness is just keep being mindful of what is real and what you are appreciative of. I hope that helps.
Yeah. I'd just like to add to that. I think, mental well-being is just so critically important. And, one of the things we're advocating internally is, this is a life-changing thing that we're going through. And I think it gives you the opportunity to reevaluate. And I think, we need to look at doing something that changes your life at the same time. For a lot of us, we spend a lot of time commuting to work every day, or we did, probably 2 hours a day. And so, most people have got an extra 2 hours a day in their life to do something positive with, that they didn't have the opportunity to do before. And whether that is physical or whether it's mental, you have the opportunity to do something different now, and use this opportunity to do whatever it might be. I'm very much into physical fitness, and with the extra 2 hours per day to train, you could actually end up running or doing a triathlon. That's all you need is you need 2 hours a day, and you can actually go out and do a triathlon. So set yourself a goal, whether it be something physical. I know we've got someone in our office who started to learn Mandarin. We've got people that couldn't cook before they're learning to cook. So just do something different that challenges you either mentally or physically, to break that monotony of what you do during your day.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and audience. Guys, thank you so much. Stay positive, stay safe, and continue the support. Dion, thank you for your time as well. Very insightful, and Tony, from your perspective. And have a good morning, and speak to you guys soon again. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Andre. Thanks, Tony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.